Hi everyone, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and today we're going to ink smush and batch. So let's jump right in. Now I actually have a couple of panels where I already did ink smushing. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this technique. You kind of just smush down some ink, but I actually spritzed it with some glitter spray, and I will link all the products that I used in the video description box below. Here are the 4 cards that I was able to make with just these 2 panels, so I'm going to show you how I did it. Now to start, I'm going to cut down the panels with these stitched edge rectangle dies from LDRS Creative. This is a small woman-owned business in Michigan, and these are some of my favorite stitched edge rectangle dies. So that largest one in the set is exactly USA 2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going down to the middle size one just to create a little bit of a white border on my finished card. Now I created these panels kind of on a whim. I had an old neighbor of mine that was visiting, hanging out with me, and she's never made cards before, and she was kind of intrigued. So I was showing her some very simple card making techniques, and the ink smushing was one of them. So the one on the left was actually done with Distress Oxides. The one on the right was done with Catherine Pooler inks, and all I did was just smush that ink down right onto my glass panel, and then I spritzed it, like I said, with a little bit of water and then also with a glitter spray, and I will link the glitter spray below because that really did add kind of a fun shimmery feature to it, which you can really see when you turn the panels in the light. Now here I used this large happy birthday die from Lawn Fawn, and I cut through both panels right in the center, and I have some black cardstock here, just slightly smaller than A2 size, so there's still a little bit of a white border, and then I'm going to use this behind where I die cut out the happy birthday. So once I can, actually hang on to my tape runner, I'm going to apply some adhesive to the back of this panel and then put it down directly on this black cardstock. Now, as you can see, I already attached the black cardstock directly to a card base that's 120-pound accent opaque, and that was just adhered down again with some of that tape runner that you see there. So I'm just going to line this up so it's nice and even, get the little die cut hairs off of my work surface here, and then I'm going to place this down, and then I'm basically going to puzzle piece the extra little fiddly bits back in. So I found that if I kind of nestle the happy birthday portion back into it, then it made it pretty easy to kind of puzzle piece these extra little bits back into the composition. So here what I'm going to do is, well, this little A was still stuck in there, so I took advantage and put a little bit of glue on the back of it. And I was actually able to do that off screen on the second card. The pieces really stayed in, so I kind of just applied glue with the parts I wanted to stick down and not on the happy birthday portion, and I was able to kind of pop it out. But one caveat with that, you want to be careful with this process with the liquid glue. You don't want to go too crazy, because when you apply pressure to hold it down, you don't want that glue to seep underneath where the die cut portion is that you're going to pull out, because then it'll make it harder to pull out and it might tear your cardstock. So just bear that in mind and be very conservative with the amount of glue that you're putting down. So here I'm just filling in the openings, and then I'm going to use a combination of my hand and my jewel picker tool, and then just kind of puzzle piece these little bits back in. So it's a lot easier to figure out where they go when you have it lined up with the actual die cut portion. So that's all I'm going to do here. So this is the most fiddly, probably timely part of the process, but it really isn't hard. It's just a little bit fiddly, which, if you know me, you know I don't always have the patience to do it, but I really want to get 4 cards out of this process. So this is a really good way to kind of take your 2 panels and get 4 cards out of it. So if you really want to build up your stash, or maybe you want to give a little gift set, or maybe you're donating cards or things like that, this is a way to kind of get more bang for your buck, so to speak, just by getting 4 cards out of 2 panels. And obviously ink smushing takes, like, I don't know, 2 minutes maybe. So really super easy techniques. Again, this is the most labor intensive part right here, is just kind of popping in these little pieces. But I'm just kind of mindful of what pieces go where. Some of them are very similar in size, like between the holes of the B and the holes of the P, they're very similar in size, so I want to make sure that I put them in the right place so that the colors match. But again, it's ink smushing, so it doesn't really have to be that concise. If you end up switching it up, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, because, it's all kind of smushed down there and a little messy anyway. It's supposed to be. So here I'm going to put the A and the H, and then panic for a second because I can't find, or a little thing in the A, and then I panicked because I couldn't find the little final piece. Go figure, right? You always, you get all the way through it, and then you're like, really? One piece. But thankfully I found it. Crisis averted. And I was able to kind of nestle that in and press it down. So again, I put my little acrylic block on here to kind of weigh it down, and then you just kind of carefully pop it back out. So you may have to kind of reposition and kind of push the little bits back in there if it's not completely dry. I probably wouldn't wait until this is fully dry, just because, like I said, if there's any oozage that got underneath that happy birthday, then you're running the risk of ripping that paper. So I'll give it a minute just so that it sticks down and it isn't so fiddly, and then that carefully remove your die cut. Now, I want to add a little bit extra to the other cards. So I have a couple 3D embossing folders from All To New. These are my favorite. And I'm going to run 2 panels of A2 size white cardstock after I spritz it with a little bit of water. I'm going to run it through off screen through my die cutting machine. Now, the water is not a necessary step, but I do find, especially with the really thick cardstock that I use, that it really does help the paper kind of mold, or the fibers of the paper to really kind of mold to the design. Now here you can see I thought, oh, hold up, I want to cut them down a little bit. So I actually trimmed them down slightly smaller than A2 size. I didn't want them to be across the entire card base. So I trimmed off 1/4 inch on each side and then ran it through off screen to get these amazing embossed panels. And I'm just actually going to leave these white because you're going to see I'm going to use the inner portions, the happy birthday die cuts, to complete these cards. So I'm just using that tape runner again, and I'm going to attach it directly to a card base. I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the background. There must be somebody here or something. But anyway, I'm just attaching this directly to a card base, and then realized I got some schmutz on here. So I'm going to use my my eraser here to kind of get that off of the card. So the next step is going to be basically just putting all the little parts together. It really did come together easily, especially once I got past that fiddly part. So here I'm going to use the liquid glue again, and I have some tweezers. I'm just going to put glue kind of liberally on the back of this, just because there is a lot of dimension on these embossed panels, and I don't want this to come off. So use whatever adhesive you prefer. You could use tape runner, you could use microdots, whatever you want. But I find in this case, with the embossing, it's probably safest just to use the liquid glue, even though it's usually my nemesis. I'm not a huge fan. You guys know I don't like the oozage. Anyway, I have these 4 finished cards here. I did add some resin droplets. These are like crystal resin droplets that look like water, and they're my favorite, and I'm totally using them all the time lately. I'm on a little bit of a resin droplet kick, but these 4 cards came together pretty quickly, and I'm super happy to have them in my stash. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.